Probably. I can trade it out if I want to. I'll probably use the handle.
Yeah.
I think I'll leave these over here for now. You wanna manage that in? I'm gonna get the chicken going first.
You might want to turn the thing down just for noise. I'm looking.
Gotta wash those hands.
Two people on. Did put a rack on there.
Yeah, I figured it'd be a good addition. Okay, y'all, we're gonna get started here. This video is gonna end up on our YouTube channel later. We're kind of filming these for YouTube so we can preserve the video and then add the recipe in. So if you're just checking us out live, welcome, thank you. If you're following along, that's awesome too. If you're not, you can catch this video on YouTube later. We'll put the link up. So we jumped on a little earlier and got our potatoes started. I just pulled them out. They're pretty cool. I'm ready to work with them. If you also already cooked your potatoes, just sit tight. If you have not got your potatoes in and you are following along with us right now, take your potatoes, put them on a lined baking sheet, get some parchment paper down, put those potatoes on there, get them in your preheated 400-degree oven, and we want those things to cook for about an hour. They should be fork tender, which means a fork should go into them pretty easily. Put a fork in it. If you do, it's done. That was my attempt at humor. Our potatoes are done, so our first item is going to be getting this chicken ready and prepped. So far, this is probably the most intimidating thing we're going to do. Working with whole products is not always easy, but the benefit, I believe, is huge. And having a skill, you want to get that for me? Having a skill where you can work with a whole animal, break that whole animal down, is just priceless. It's a great skill to have. So, what we're going to do here to start is we're going to cut the back out of this chicken. So if you have a kitchen shears, like a pair of scissors for the kitchen, you're going to grab that little tail at the bottom of that chicken and you're just going to cut right up the back, right along the back, the spine of that chicken. If you're using a knife like me, I like to let gravity do most of the work. So I'm just going to pick that chicken up. I'm going to go in with that first cut, and then we're just going to kind of follow it down. It should move pretty smooth. You are going to cut through some bone, and we're going to bring it all the way down out to the neck. And then I'm going to fold that guy over, and I'm just going to finish on the other end of that tail, just cutting that back out.
So just to clarify, you're cutting the back out along one side and down one and up the other side of the spine. Is that right?
Sure, yeah. Just hitting either side of that backbone. Get that piece removed. We're going to flip that chicken over. and then give it a nice press, kind of flatten that thing out. Now we have that chicken all set. I'm gonna quick rinse my hands again. So I'm gonna start seasoning this thing before we get it on that tray. So when you're cutting that chicken, you gotta kind of look at that piece, look at that back, find where that spine is, and you wanna just cut along the edges of that bird. Okay, it should, visually you should see where that is. You're gonna cut down and then back up on the other side. And that's really just gonna allow you to just butterfly that chicken and split it right into two. Did you have a question, Lisa?
I wondered, and then just to remember that you broke the breastbone, is that right? To push down on it?
Yeah, it's not necessary. If you were gonna cut this chicken in half, you'd wanna press into it and crack that breastbone and then pull that bone out and then run a knife down there and split that chicken in half. I did it just to flatten it out a little bit. You don't have to, but you certainly can. So now we're gonna season. What I have is pretty straightforward. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and then I'm gonna add some Spanish smoked paprika. Just a flavor that I'm really into. You can add that if you want. You can certainly omit that paprika. So what I'm gonna do here is just very, very, very heavy layer of salt. I'm gonna cover that chicken entirely. And then I'm not using this salt again. I separated out my chicken salt, my chicken pepper and paprika from the rest of my herbs and spices because I don't want to be sticking my hands into this salt and then using it for another ingredient. But I'm gonna rub that salt into this chicken a little bit. I'm gonna flip that thing over and I'm gonna hit the other side with some salt. A lot of salt. I'm gonna do the same thing with the pepper. A little bit less pepper, but still getting some flavor on that chicken. Pepper on the top. Just let that sit. And then lastly, I'm gonna add some of that paprika. And I like a nice coating. Nice thick, heavy coating of that smoked paprika. It's also gonna give it a really nice color. So, once we split that chicken, we very liberally season the top and the inside of that chicken with salt, pepper, and paprika. I have my oven already heated from my potatoes. It's at 400 degrees. And so what I'm going to do with this chicken is I'm going to place it on a lined baking sheet with a rack on top. That rack allows for a little bit of space between the bottom of that chicken and the pan. Cook a little bit more evenly, but it's not necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab that chicken. I'm going to plop that thing right on top of that rack, and then in the oven it goes. So I actually used a different cutting board for my chicken just so my work surface was going to be nice and clean and I didn't have to sanitize it again. So I would definitely recommend having a cutting board for that chicken. If you don't, just make sure you take some time to really wipe that counter off, clean it, use some soap, use some water, clean that workspace off. So chicken is in, potatoes are cooked. If you have not cooked your potatoes, no worries. You can do this process later. So now that my chicken's in and my potatoes are done, I'm going to begin the process of making that filling for my twice-baked potato. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these potatoes in half. Set them aside, get them all cut in half here. And then I'm going to use my stand mixer again. You don't have to. You could certainly use just a regular whisk or even a fork to mix this. Now, we're not looking to get all of this potato out of the inside, okay? So just get what you can. We want to get like 80 to 90% of this inside out and into this mixing bowl for our filling. So I kind of like to go in with my spoon and then kind of come on the other side and just work all that flesh out of there as best I can. I'm going to get most of that potato out of that skin. And then I'm going to put that skin back on the tray because those are going to go back into the oven. I'm going to finish out the rest of these potatoes here. So I'm making 4 potatoes. That's what the recipe calls for. We will be posting the recipe up later, so no worries. If you have any questions, throw them in that feed. Let me know. Give me something to do while I clean out these potatoes. One of the things you might want to pay attention to is if you have potatoes that are different size, you're almost certainly going to have to keep the larger ones in a little bit longer than some of your smaller potatoes for obvious reasons. Larger ones take a little bit longer to cook. So once I get this flesh of this potato all worked out in my mixing bowl, I'm going to add in some butter. I'm adding in 3 tablespoons of butter to my 4 potatoes. So that's 3 tablespoons of butter for 4 potatoes. Almost there.
Kyle M. Kraft says this is great, David.
Kyle, what's up, buddy? Glad you jumped on. Fellow Wanakee gym owner there, CrossFit or Farmland Fitness, over on Ramish, I think. I got that right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle. Throw the address up there. Last potato here. So no rush on getting the flesh out. Be careful. We want to keep that skin intact. We don't want that to fall apart. But if it does, don't worry about it too much, right? We're just eating food. It's not the end of the world. So potato skins are ready to go back in the oven to kind of crisp them up a bit. So I'm going to do that now. We're going to put them in for 10 minutes and no more than 10 minutes. So that oven is still at 400 degrees with my chicken. I'm going to go ahead and grab my butter, my 3 tablespoons of butter, get it on my stand mixer. I'm going to use the paddle to start. I might switch over to the whisk if this mixture gets a little bit softer, but we're going to start with our paddle. And just nice and easy to begin. Maybe. There we go. Nice and easy to begin. Just getting that melted butter in there. The next thing I'm going to add is going to be my sour cream. So I have, the recipe is calling for 3/4 of a cup. I'm gonna do about a cup just because why not? I like sour cream. So I'm gonna add that sour cream right into my potatoes now that that butter is mixed in. This guy to get some of that out. So sour cream is in. I'm going to incorporate that sour cream into that potato mix. The next thing I'm going to do is add my grated cheddar cheese, which I have pre-grated. We're going for about 4 ounces here. So I'm going to dump that. Once that mixture looks nice and smooth, we don't want to over mix it, so don't mix it continuously. You can let that thing stop. I'm going to add my cheese. And I'm not gonna lie, I did use extra cheese too, but that's just who I am. I'm from Wisconsin. So I'm gonna let that mix. And then my last item is gonna be my scallions. I'm gonna pull that paddle off. My bowl off of that mixer. Thank you. Now I'm gonna add my scallions, but real quick, I'm just gonna do like a little scallion tutorial, I guess. I don't know. So a lot of times when you buy these onions, the tops aren't always looking really nice. So I like to just kind of lop off maybe like an inch. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how they look. And then I keep the rubber band on the scallions all the way down to where the white begins. And then that allows me to keep these scallions nice and tight. So when I go in to give it a fine slice, I have nice, uniform, small rings. It's just like that garlic the other day in that sauce. We don't want big chunks of these really, really strong flavored onions or garlic. Great. So, scallions are done. I'm gonna go ahead and dump my scallions into my bowl. I use a bunch of scallions, one bunch. And then I'm going to take a spoon and I'm just going to fold the scallions into that mix. So we just want to get everything incorporated. Good. I'm going to set that aside. So, always taste your food. I'm going to add a little bit more salt. Grab a new utensil because I ate off that last one. And I'm just going to give it one more stir before I scoop into my potato shells. So my potato shells have a little bit more time. I think I'm going to let them go for a second here, and I just want to get into a little bit of our next component of this dinner, which is going to be just a really simple side salad for dinner. Mixed greens. I bought these mixed greens from the store. I laid them out in a container to kind of let them dry out a little bit. Sometimes mixed greens come really wet, and I can really damage some of these delicate leaves that we get in a mixed green bunch. So, mixed greens, I have some honey, I have some apple cider vinegar, I have some mustard, and I have some olive oil. So, with this salad dressing, I'm going to start with a base amount of ingredients, but then I'm gonna taste and I'm gonna add in what I think it needs to kind of suit the taste, or my taste, what I want to eat in the salad dressing. So some people like a really acidic salad dressing, some people like it a lot sweeter. This is where you can kind of have some fun with this dressing, and I would encourage you to taste and add in ingredients to try to make that sort of perfect salad dressing combination. Probably my favorite dressing that I've ever had. Used to make it at the Mermaid Cafe quite a bit. What did we call it? Sunshine dressing? Sunshine salad dressing. So we're gonna start with about a 1/4 cup of olive oil, and then we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of mustard. I'm gonna use a stone ground mustard here. So 2 teaspoons. That right into that oil. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of honey. And then I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and I'm also going to add in 1 crushed clove of garlic. So I'm going to give this a little mix before I put that garlic in there. And when mixing dressing, make sure you got a bowl big enough that you can really get after that whisking process, vigorously whisk that dressing. Should almost start to take on like a creamy sort of consistency or look to it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just taste. I want a little bit more apple cider vinegar in mine, so I'm going to add just under 1 more tablespoon. Incorporate that back in. Go ahead.
That's good.
It's pretty good. So, I ended up with about a 1/4 cup of olive oil, 2 teaspoons of stone ground mustard. I used 1 tablespoon of honey, and then I ended up using 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Although I started with 1, I tasted, didn't like what I had, and added some more. So, the last sort of touch to this dressing is a crushed clove of garlic. So pretty straightforward. Peel that garlic, smash it with your knife, and then just toss it in that dressing and let it sit. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of set that dressing aside. I'm going to grab my potatoes because I know they're done. I'm going to keep them on the oven, I think. Keep them on the stove. And so, potato shells are now a little bit firmer, nice and crisp. And I am going to grab a spoon. And I'm going to just start filling these shells. And I think you're going to have enough to be pretty generous with that filling. If you're not into, I don't know, like the cheddar, or maybe you're feeling a little bit adventurous, a couple substitutions, you could fold in some blue cheese instead of the cheddar. That's a pretty common substitution on a twice-baked potato. Another substitution that you could use would be to take some spinach, chop up that spinach, fold it in this mixture and then add that to your potato. It's always better, I think, to underfill a bit and just make sure you have enough filling. And you can always go back and add more versus kind of overpiling or overfilling those first few. You can always come back and add more.
Would you ever put chopped bacon in there?
Sure. Why not? Yeah, for sure. You can chop bacon. You could, yeah, you know, you get pretty creative. You know, cream, potato. Probably wouldn't want to add like, I don't know. Like, don't get too weird with this. You know, keep it pretty simple. Bacon would be a great. You could even like cook up a piece or two of bacon and crumble it, and just put that on the top. That'd be a great addition. So I'm on my last shell here, and I pretty much came out with just enough filling to make these. I'm gonna get everything I can out of this bowl. That's just how I roll.
Spatula?
I think I got them. I think we're good there.
Alright.
I'm just gonna get these potatoes kind of organized on the pan in a good way where they're not falling all over the place. I'm gonna lick my fingers because it's delicious. So, potatoes are gonna go in now. I'm only gonna put them in for maybe another 5 to 10 minutes to just kind of heat everything up. So we want that filling, which we had sitting out while we prepared everything else. We want that filling to be warm. So I'm gonna throw them in the oven. I'm gonna heat that filling up. So probably 5 to 10 minutes. My chicken is still sizzling, you can hear that. So, your chicken, what we're looking for on that is, I'm gonna actually take my potatoes out. As I'm explaining to you the chicken, I realized we're not gonna have an even cook time here. So, I pulled the potatoes out because I want them to end when the chicken is done. So I'll put the potatoes back in probably with maybe like 10 minutes left on the chicken. So for your chicken, oven is at 400 degrees. We want 40 minutes to about an hour. 40 minutes to an hour for sure at a 400 degree oven. If you have a thermometer, you're looking for 165 in the thigh, so make sure you're checking that dark meat and not just checking the chicken breasts. We want to check that dark meat. We want 165, but that should be about an hour at 400. So when I'm about 10 minutes out from this, I'm going to toss my potatoes in to finish them, to heat them all up, because everything on those potatoes is cooked. It's all done. Throw my potatoes in. 10 minutes left on that chicken. When that 10-minute timer pops up, I'll pull my chicken out, I'll pull my potatoes out, and then last thing I will do, could you grab me a mixing bowl real quick? The last thing I'll do right before I serve is I'll take greens, take the amount of mixed greens that I want to eat, I'm going to put them in a bowl, and then I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of that dressing on there, not too much, and then with my hand, I'm going to toss that salad in that bowl with the dressing. So you want to be gentle with those leaves. We don't want to crush them. Once you have that dressing tossed, once your potatoes and your chicken are out of the oven, all you got to do is cut that chicken up. You can cut the thighs off. You can shred it if you want. It doesn't really matter how you attack that chicken. It's cooked all the way through. You can split it in half. Take one half for yourself. Let your family fight over the rest. That's up to you. But that will be your split chicken, twice baked potato, and a dinner salad. So just to recap real quick before we say goodbye to y'all, we got to get those potatoes in the oven to start. First thing you want to do is bake those potatoes for 1 hour. While those potatoes are baking, what you can do is you can shred your cheddar cheese, prep your sour cream, chop your scallions, get all your herbs, get all your spices together, be ready to season that chicken. Once those potatoes are done, we're going to pull them out. We're going to split that chicken down the back, so we're cutting down one end of that backbone and then back up the other, removing that piece, flattening that bird out on a baking sheet with some parchment paper. If you want, or if you have a baking grate that can give you a little bit of rise on that pan, I would recommend using that. Throw that chicken in the oven, set that timer for 45 minutes. At that 45-minute point, check that chicken, throw those potatoes in, you got about 10 minutes left. 10-15 minutes later, pull it all out, toss your sunshine dressing with your fresh mixed greens, and dinner is served. Thanks for sticking around. I'm going to throw this recipe on the YouTube channel. So my athletes specifically, I want you to head to that YouTube channel, grab the video, grab the recipe, make your family some dinner, let me see some photos, tag me in those posts, and we will catch you next week when we are back for 3 more recipes. Thank you for joining us, y'all.